In the combat examination video surrounding Liza P, I mentioned that Fable arts, for the most part, are just alternative means of attacking and defending that we can choose to disregard if we wish, except for weapon buffs that I think are really useful. In this video, we're going to take a closer look at them, motivated by an interesting update to what they're capable of.
Wake up, son.
If we pay close attention to the animation of these three weapons, you'll notice that they all have one interesting feature: the red effects on its last hit. Initially, I thought it was just a bonus damage for that specific strike, seeing how the attack buff I mentioned earlier shares the same color, sort of like a reward for being able to connect it in the first place. But thanks to a comment from a viewer named Miguel Carvalho, I was informed that the red strike, which is what we'll call it from here on in, can also stun vulnerable enemies, an alternative to the official way of doing it through held strong attacks. Immediately I went out to test it, and here's the result. This verifies that the trick does work, so big thanks to Miguel for that. The question now is, how does this change the dynamics of a fight? Should we rely on Fable arts instead of a charged heavy attack? Is there an advantage to using one over the other? I took the time to investigate this, and up for comparison here are all 5 melee weapons available in the demo: the rapier, longsword, saber, electric coil stick, and the baton. Initially, the first section was supposed to be a ranking of the damage rating between all of them, but there are too many variables at play: character level and its corresponding stat distribution, weapon upgrades, and the inherent differences in attack power. So instead, I checked out each of the weapons' damage improvement from using a held strong attack to a Fable art. Here's the table for it. One important thing to consider about their damage capabilities is that they're not consistent. It varies per hit, as you can see here. So I took 10 samples of each weapon's held strong attack and Fable art, wrote down their averages, and from there calculated their damage enhancement percentages. This is something we can compare among all weapons and rank them accordingly. Fable arts, being offensive skills as they are, can be expected to have improvements across the board. The higher it is, the more we might consider using them when trying to stun an enemy, among other factors. For consistency's sake, I used the practice puppets found in the gardens of Hotel Krat. At the top of this list is the electric coil stick, whose Fable art, named Rush Smash, boasts an average of 164% damage improvement over the held strong attack. Just a quick side note on this specific weapon. It has a passive skill that would make enemies electrified after a few hits, as indicated by the blue numbers, and that means the damage they'd receive will be greater. In my testing, the increase is around 16% on average, gathered from 10 samples of held strong attacks, while the practice puppet is in an electrocuted state, and 10 that were not. Since we'll most likely try to make the enemy groggy somewhere in the middle of a fight, it's safe to assume that the target is already electrified by then. So the samples taken for the coil stick here is when the practice puppet is in the same altered state. Ranked second at 153% enhancement on average is the longsword skill named Link Slash. Below it at minus 28% is the saber. Its Fable art, called Storm Slash, has a 125% damage increase on average. From here we have another massive drop of 25% for the rapier, sitting at an average of 100% damage increase to its Fable art, named Storm Stab, double that of its held strong attack. But that's not as bad as the baton, whose Fable art, Single Slash, only increases the damage at 48%, a more severe drop in comparison to the weapon just above it. You'll also notice that this thing is colored differently. That's because I'm not sure if it has a red strike or not. I created a separate save file specifically to accommodate its single slash that requires 2 slots per hit. In the demo, we can raise it up to 4 through the P organ, and was only able to observe the first 2 hits. As you can see, they have exactly the same move, so it's quite possible that the baton might not even have a red strike at all, or it could be a case similar to the longsword that requires us to manually input 3 hits. If that's the case, then the baton would need 6 Fable slots, and there's no way to accomplish that in the demo. I highly doubt it though, because in the longsword's description of Link Slash, it specifically says that we can initiate a 3-hit combo by pressing the corresponding button repeatedly. No such kind of similar note is found on the baton. The next Sable I have for you today is the time it takes for each weapon's charged heavy attack and Fable art to animate. We can easily compare these to one another since they remain the same regardless of our build. For this one, I recorded the footage at 60 frames per second, starting the timer when our character begins to move from his resting posture and stopping it when the business end of a weapon connects with the target puppet, as prompted by a streak of light. The objective here is to rank them based on how fast they can finish a held strong attack or a Fable art. The fastest weapon on our list is the electric coil stick, being able to cast Rush Smash in just 0.51 seconds. Its charged heavy attack is also quite fast, clocking in at 1.05. Ranked second is the baton that can execute its held strong attack in 0.59 seconds. As mentioned before, we're not certain yet if single slash has a red strike. But even if it does, based on what we saw in the first 2 hits, it's most likely on the slowest side, estimated to be at around 2 seconds or more. Ranked third is the longsword that can do its charged heavy attack in 1.17 seconds. This is in great contrast to Link Slash that takes a little over than 2 seconds to finish at 2.05. Not far behind is the Saber. It can cast its charged attack and Storm Slash with only a 0.01 second difference, at 1.18 and 1.19 seconds respectively. Right below it, but still not too bad, is the Rapier, whose held strong attack takes 1.20 seconds to complete, faster than Storm Stab at 1.34. Taking a close look at these 2 tables, my opinion about Fable arts has slightly changed, depending on the weapon. Based on simplicity of use in making a vulnerable enemy groggy, the electric coil stick is definitely best. Not only does it have the best damage boost through Rush Smash, it's also the fastest when executing them. I haven't even mentioned its tremendous range yet. Based on my testing, our character will be able to hit a target even if it's around 12 feet away. So if a certain foe is primed to be stunned, we can, for example, back away to a safe distance and launch our Fable art from there. Apart from the passive damage bonus I mentioned earlier, we can enhance it even more through Generate, the coil stick's secondary Fable art, that boosts its attack by 60% on average and lasts for 25 seconds. Look at the damage on that thing. Pretty awesome, isn't it? Moving on to the Saber, it seems that there's no reason for us not to use Storm Slash when trying to stun an enemy. The timing difference between the two is quite small at 0.01 second, and the damage difference is great. It also has a weapon buff named Concentrate that raises its attack by 16% and lasts for 15 seconds, according to my tests. As for the rapier, we can use either one, but it's up to us to decide if we want to prioritize stunning the target a bit earlier or get more damage out of it at the expense of a slight delay. Its other Fable art, named Guard Parry, is similar to the way it's done in the Soul series. In order to use it properly, we have to time the enemy's attack with the arm motion of the said skill. If done correctly, it will execute an automatic riposte that does 72% more damage than a held strong attack, but not as powerful as Storm Stab. Also, we can try using it as often as we like because the move doesn't consume Fable when we miss. Using the baton, meanwhile, will force us to use its held strong attack for reasons I outlined earlier. It's not bad though, being the second fastest among all 5. It also has a weapon buff skill named Strike Chance that lasts for 15 seconds and will raise our attack by 80%, but for one hit only. The longsword, on the other hand, has a decent held strong attack speed, very much the opposite of Link Slash that takes too long to execute. In my experience, any Fable art that takes anywhere near 2 seconds or more would be very hard to finish, depending on the enemy's overall attack behavior and its action after we start doing it. So if it's a quick attack, then yeah, we're out of luck. We might be able to get away with it against the Parade Master, who have huge gaps in between when attacking, but not against the likes of the Mad Donkey, who's highly aggressive. Its other Fable art, called Absolute Defense, will allow us to perfect block attacks automatically for exactly 1 second. That's all it does. If you do decide to give Fable arts a shot, keep in mind a couple of important things about them. First off, as far as the demo allows us to experience, Fable recharge rate is very slow on all 5 weapons. In my playthroughs, I had to eliminate more than a dozen enemies just to replenish all 3 bars. The full game will most likely give us a means of regenerating it much faster, but for now the only way to instantly fill them is through consumables available from Polendina over at Hotel Krat, and we can only carry 3 at a time, so we can't rely on them too much. Second, only melee strikes will regenerate Fable. Light and heavy strikes, held strong attacks, and those ones that come after sprinting. The only exception to this are fatal attacks, which for whatever reason will not do so. And third, using Fable arts will temporarily halt stamina regeneration, very similar to the Legion arm. So think of them as an extension of our offensive capabilities and not as a breather for our character. So there we have it, an in-depth look into Fable arts. Hopefully the information contained in this topic will be of some use. Thank you for watching.